So yes, these sessions are recorded. You can turn on or leave off your video. I encourage you to turn them on if you can. If you can't, that's all right, or prefer not to, that's all right too. They'll be recorded for a couple of reasons. One is for you to reflect back on the materials, or for those that couldn't attend live today, that they can watch it at another time. So welcome to Accounting 3050 course. And yeah, I'll be your professor for the first 2 months, May and June, and then you have another professor for the last 2 months. And I see she hasn't added her info into the instructor module. I'm sure she will at some point. So there's a full-time professor that typically teaches this course, is shifted around for May and June, so I'm here to step in. I'm also teaching another section of 3050 all summer. So, and I've been doing accounting myself since, well, after university, since 24 years ago. And then obviously schooling and temp jobs before then. So quite a long time, primarily in healthcare, not-for-profit, charities, a few years in insurance, etc. But I really like the not-for-profit area. I own my own business, running a fractional CFO, COO services for the not-for-profit charitable sector. So I work with charities and not-for-profits in fractional capacities when they need just a little bit of CFO expertise, or maybe they need an intern person while they're recruiting somebody. And I find it very enjoyable because it's, little projects here and there. Except I did pick up a project right now. An executive director for the Canada Suicide Prevention Service at the moment, nearly full time. So we run the National Suicide Prevention Service. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I live just outside of London and have 2 teen 17-year-olds at home, blended family. And I've got a 23-year-old daughter living down in Windsor who's finished university. So that's a little bit about me. Just so you know who I am a human. You can reach out to me anytime. The best is through FOL email. You can email me. I'll check it probably at least twice a day during the week, and once a day on the weekend. Usually during the week, I check it more than twice, but I'll commit to twice. And so you can email me that way. If something's urgent or there's a situation, you have my cell phone number here. It's under the instructor information. You can text me there or WhatsApp me to that number, whatever works for you. And I'll respond as quickly as I can. Okay. That's a bit about me. Any questions on that? Pretty silent group. If somebody's talking, you're on mute, but if you're not talking, that's okay. I try to do purposeful pauses. It's always hard to let there be silence. So, all right. So this week is actually very light. We're just going to cover a little bit what to expect in the course. It's not going to be the full 2 hours. It's going to be fairly short unless you have questions that you want to ask today. Feel free, but I'm just going to give you a little rundown of what to expect on the site and kind of the course schedule and where I'll be supporting you on a weekly basis for May and June. So here we are, we have our course site. You should be able to see it on screen. If somebody can give me a thumbs up or comment that you can see it. Chat, yes, perfect, thank you. So here we are, we have our course site. Looks and feels just like any other site. I did post a little announcement, I'm here, I'll be checking emails regularly, and then there's a schedule, which I'll pull up in a moment, the text, and then one thing that we ask you to do, so I'll slow down a little bit, we'll ask you to do this week is an academic integrity quiz. I see about 5 or 6 folks have done it already. So if you can do that at your earliest convenience, that'd be great. And then as we go through this term, my plan is to post some recordings at the beginning of the week, starting for next week. And then we use Wednesdays to do some applications. So we'll go through some exercises together, answer any questions you might have on the material, because unless somebody tells me otherwise, I find that seems to be the best use of your time, of my time. You can flex your schedules a little bit, and then we'll have live time on Wednesdays at 4, or we'll do some examples and applications for the chapter at hand. Okay, any objections to that? I am flexible at this point, but if that seems to work, a thumbs up would be great, or yes, sounds good in the chat, whatever works for you. I wanted to set up a poll. I just ran out of time before class today. is that easy and nice course. Well, I'm assuming everybody's here has taken other accounting courses. Can you type in the chat box what accounting courses you have taken so far? Like, did you take 1100? Did you take 1011? Probably one or both of those two, perhaps. Both? Okay. On 3036, I'm trying to think which one that one is. I've taught the 1011 and 1100. I have not taught 3036. This one here, I find, actually on that, how about I pull up the schedule then? I've got it downloaded here and I'll show you where it is on FOL. Actually, I'll go under content. Perfect, thank you folks. So let's go to general course information. You'll see both a detailed schedule and a summary schedule. I'm going to share the summary schedule for a moment. I've opened it here. And so what this course really does is dig into a little more detail in certain areas, primarily starting with liabilities. So we'll look at current liabilities and we'll expand some of the examples of current liabilities and accounting of those items. Then we get into long-term, some financial instruments we'll talk about in a couple of weeks, and we'll explain more of what those are as we get closer to those weeks. And then we start to talk about income taxes, which did you cover income taxes in 3036? I just don't know that course. No? Okay, so this will be your first introduction in income taxes then. So obviously you'll learn some more. So this is all about the corporate income tax side, not the personal income taxes, which are two completely different things. So we'll start to introduce income taxes and some of the methodology around it and how to account for it. Then there'll be a test on those first few chapters the week of June 5th. And, oh, great, you're taking income tax separately. Good, Elizabeth, because that'll get deeper. This is just very high level generalities about income tax in this course. And then before I hand you over to the other teacher, we'll look at pensions and what that means. Sorry, I'm just watching the chat. Expect professor can make complicated terms simple for understanding. I'll definitely try. And if there's anything that doesn't make sense as you're reviewing materials, or if you're listening to a lesson, or if you're at the 4 o'clock live sessions on Wednesdays and we're looking at examples and something doesn't make sense, please raise your hand, type in the chat, ask the questions. That's what I'm here for, is to help you gain that understanding. Oh, yeah, I'll definitely try not to make it more complicated than it is. Okay. And then the second half of the course with the other prof, you'll get into leases, fun times. If you've never dealt with capital leases before, this course will introduce that concept. There's special accounting rules around leases. That's probably one of the more complicated sections, in my opinion, in this course. I'm sad I'm not teaching it because I actually know that section quite well. One of my previous employers, we migrated from owning all of our assets to leasing all of our technology assets. We had $10 million worth of technology equipment. And rather than investing $10 million every 4 or 5 years, we went through a leasing program. But because of the value and the fact that we're using them for most of its useful life, there's a whole accounting process you need to adhere to. That's all I'll say about it now. But that's typically one of the areas that might stumble people up. But hopefully we'll get you up to speed. Once you get it once, it gets easier. Then we'll look at some of the equity components in the second half, how to account for some special components of shareholders' equity. And then there's the other components, how to calculate earnings per share, statement of cash flow, more details on how that's created, how to do restatements if you have an error that you find out after, and then kind of wrapping it all up, the full financial statement package. So in the past, you've done a balance sheet, an income statement, statement of retained earnings probably, or shareholders' equity. You might have done a brief cash flow in one of those other courses in 1011, a little bit on 1100, but this is actually a little more comprehensive with some of these other components that you'll learn over the next number of weeks. Any questions on topics? Then I'll walk you through kind of the breakdown and show you where to find things. Okay, and see Hussein and Miran, both joined. Hello and welcome. All right, so the other items on this little summary schedule then, it looks at some of your deadlines. So there are quizzes due basically every week where there isn't a test. There's a 2% quiz on FOL that's due. Actually, I need to fix that because the online version of the course is due Sunday. Yours will be due the day of the class, I'm pretty sure. Just have to double check what the lead prof told me. So, no, they are due on Sunday. So we did leave it open to Sunday. Sorry, I take that back. So you'll see them in the calendars here. For example, chapter 12 that we will cover next week. So by the 9th, I'll post a little clip. The 11th, we'll have a drop-in, do some applications. And then by the 15th, you'll want to do this little quiz on FOL. And you'll see that there's basically one every week, minus the week of the test. So just a little, don't miss those. You'll want to take care of those. Our first test is worth 18%. The quizzes are 2% each. So our first test will be on those first few chapters. And again, it's on FOL. And I set those up, just so you know, for timelines, is that you can write it between 2 in the morning, basically the day of our normal class. So it's a Wednesday that our class is. So it's the Wednesday of that week. I expect you to complete it, but I gave you the day in case, you have a part-time job and you're shifting your schedule around, you're watching recordings, you can do it sometime in that day. So just keep that noted in your calendars. Test 1 is the day of June 8th. Test 2, July 13th, 3 on August 17th. And each of those tests are 18%. Now, a couple other components, you'll have what we call an experiential assignment, which is worth 4%. So it's starting to apply the learnings in a project altogether, just a tiny project that you'll complete over the next number of weeks. And I'll show you where that opens. And then there's a big project for the term worth 20%. The experiential assignment, there's a quiz on it that is due on July 24th, and you can write it anytime between the 3rd and the 24th of July. So make sure you flag that in your calendars to write it. And the content then, go under content. Actually, let me view this as a student so that I see what you see. So there's a number of things. Let's just start at the top then. So we'll start at their general course information. So under general course information, just a reminder, a bunch of these notes, there are 4 note files here, is just a reminder what typical type of entries look like, what they might debit or credit. For those that just took it, you might remember it. You don't need these files, but if you just need a little reminder, for example, if you click this notes basic entries, it gives you, cash, where you might debit or credit it. It gives you some examples of how you might impact those accounts. That's one example. Some of the other files, for example, you have a notes on adjusting entries, the 4 types that we break them down into: deferred and accrued expenses, deferred and accrued revenues. Okay. Again, they might be helpful to you or you may not. The summary schedule that I just had open is this bottom file. And then the detailed schedule, if we pop that up, gives you an idea of how you should try to map out what you're working on each week. It aligns some exercises. Again, we'll do some of these exercises together on the Wednesdays at 4. But it kind of gives you an idea if you're trying to self-teach and just checking in for questions. I know some students prefer that. It kind of gives you an idea of where to focus your attention on. Okay. And that's laid out for the entire term. Next section is the textbook item. So this textbook is open source. So it's a PDF document. It was created by one of the teachers in Fanshawe College. So we've been providing that for free. The only thing we ask is if you find an error, a spelling error, or a problem that isn't correct, and I'll be doing the same as we go through the course, is that we note it, let me know, and I'll let the author know. Okay, so they're looking for input and ways to make it better. So it is a 621-page document, but at least you don't have to pay for it. So you can download it. If you want to print it, you know, feel free, whether it's on your own or you can contact the print shop at the college if you do want a printed copy. I know some students prefer. So it might cost you $20 or so to print it. I have no idea. I don't know how much they charge per page. And then there's a little bit about the author and other resources. And then it's broken down by the same chapters. Where's that? Here's the table of contents. Okay. So for example, next week we'll get to chapter 12. So we can click on it and it talks about the liability section that we will cover next week. So my recordings won't be reading this to you. It'll be going through some of the slides that are posted on FOL and adding some commentary to it, just to help explain some of the concepts as we go. Any questions on the textbook so far? Or thumbs up, carry on? Okay, we'll just wait a second in case somebody else has some. Okay, the next section here is to be completed week 1. So this is what we're asking you to do this week. There's a link to an academic integrity model. And largely because you're doing this remote and on your own or in small groups, make sure it's your work. Make sure you're actually learning the materials, because if you don't now, it will bite you later on. So please, you know, do your best to be honest and truthful, no copying, do your own work, etc. It's one thing to ask each other for support or ask me for support, but really try to do the work on your own as much as possible. Once you've gone through that module, please complete the quiz. It's on FOL. You can attempt it as many as possible, and you have to get at least 80% to get through the course. So if you do it once, you get 70, I don't care. Go look through the module, do it again, okay, until you get 80. The next couple of items is the experiential assignment that I talked about that's due in July. It opens July 3rd. The idea is to get you through the first few chapters. And then there's this small assignment here. So it'll open up later on. There's a copy of some financial statements of Air Canada. And then there's the assignment overview. If I just pull that up. So of course, it jumps back. Hold on. Just to give you an idea what it looks like. So it's a Word document. It's an FOL quiz that you'll have based on it. So you'll be basically reading the annual report from Air Canada, and then you'll want to have that file open, and then you'll complete the FOL quiz. Okay, so it's basically applying the knowledge you have on how to read a financial statement or a set of financial statements. 4% of the final grade. There are 40 questions, multiple choice, true, false, and short answer. Okay. Questions on the experiential assignment? We'll talk more about it as we get closer. It's important here, you only have one attempt. So you want to make sure that, you know, read the annual report in advance, maybe make some notes on what you see, and then attempt the assignment for the quiz. Okay, the next section here is the project, which opens on June 12th. I encourage you to put in your calendars, take a look at it once it's open. Doesn't mean start working on it, but you can have it. What you want to do is download it and have an idea of what is it asking for. So as you're learning new concepts, you can start applying it. So the project, there are a bunch of transactions here. Of course, it's going to take a minute to load. So I should play the Jeopardy song here. Here we go. So we've got the little brief info about the company, when the information's as of, and what you're required to do. So there's A to T. Talks about the due date being Sunday, August 7th, 20% of the course. And then there's a bunch of transactions not included. So it talks about what's included or not. Okay, so there's a bunch of items here. And so the entries you will make will be based on the materials that we learn in this course. So for example, the leased asset talks about the capital lease section in the second half of the course. Pension plans, for example, it gives you the description. You have to use the knowledge that we'll teach you in this course or in the text to apply how to account for it. And then there's the Excel project file. Yeah, accounting builds on everything. So if you think about accounting 1100, 1011, 3036, basic debits and credits, financial statements, adjusting entries, it continues to build. What it does is it extrapolates things. So we always talk about, pension expense, but we didn't talk about defined benefit pension versus defined contribution pension and what that means and how the accounting differs. So, but when you need to increase your pension expense or increase your liability, it's the same debit and credit functionality. So it continues to build on the work that we've done in the past. Does that help, Hussein? So the project file is an Excel file you'll want to download, and you'll pop through it. It doesn't view very well on FOL, unfortunately. And once you are completed, you'll be submitted through FOL for it to be graded. So there's it's all set up for us professors to go through and grade each of you individually. So it does take his time at the end of the course. Okay. So that's kind of the project. Again, we'll talk more about that when it comes to be launched, which I will still be around June 12th. So I'll walk through that. I think if you have, so Ying, I have a student asking me a question in the chat privately here. When we're done, can you review it and check right or wrong before submitting? I'm not going to grade it before you submit it. If you have specific questions of clarity, like I'm not quite sure how to record this entry, that's one thing. But if you send it to me, say, can you just look it over? No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. But if you have specific areas of concern that you think, oh, I don't think I did this right, or I'm not sure about that, that is a reasonable request. Yeah, specific questions, definitely. So then you get down to the chapters. So for example, chapter 12 next week, we have the slides already posted. And again, I'll do a recording for those slides and get it posted. There are some examples and spreadsheets. Sometimes there are extra information for reference. So we'll walk through some of those together. So some of the examples we'll do together on Wednesdays. The slides, I'll post some recordings at the beginning of the week for that. Okay, so you'll see a new link under here for, a video link for the slide walk. And that'll be the same each week. Let me go back to student view. So then just pop down, for example, week 13, slides and examples, week 14, et cetera, for each chapter. Down to the bottom here, there's a spot for review files. So if I or the other professor want to, post some other review files for the test or for the final, we have a folder set up just in case. Nothing's in there ready to go yet. The virtual classroom link, I might actually hide that. I'm not using Bongo. Okay, as you noticed, since you're here today, don't use the virtual classroom piece. I find it not as helpful. So for our classes, as you found today under Media Tools, Zoom, you'll find the active meetings. And just to point out, in case you are unfamiliar or didn't have a professor that used Zoom before, once we finish the session together, usually in 10 or 15 minutes, the recording will be posted on the cloud. So if you go into the Zoom, onto the tab Cloud Recordings, it'll identify in the list. Okay. And then you can click on that option. Once you click on the date that you want, it'll pop open a little video. When you click on it to view it, below it will be the password. Okay, because I've had many students in the past say, I click on it, but where's the password? Well, you click on it, it opens a new window. But if you go back to this tab in your Google Chrome or whatever you're using, the passcode will be right below where you just clicked. Okay. sorry, there's a question. What financial statement should we review for the project? Which project? The big project? This one? Yeah, it'll all be in here. So we give you the project transactions, it's all in here. So between the Excel and that Word document, that'll be what you want to review. The financial statements that you're talking about might be the Experiential Assignment, which is Air Canada 2020. The test one includes Excels. All the tests are on FOL, if that's what you mean. Another question in the chat privately here. So you'll be using Excel to do calculations in journals, but when it comes to tests, it'll all be on FOL. Good question. So the tests, I'm pretty sure we identified here somewhere. They're all in multiple choice, short answer, or true false. It's a combination of the three. So it'll give you a question based on a scenario. You have to do the quick calculation. You know, we might say, what's in the first half of the course here? You know what, assume an organization had $100,000 in net income before income taxes and their corporate tax rate is 20%. What would be the journal entry to record the entry to the current income taxes? So then you quickly do the calculation. It'd be a debit to the income tax expense for 20,000 and a credit to the income tax payable. So that might be one of the examples based on chapter 15. So it'll be based on the activity of those chapters. So you don't need to upload Excels weekly, but for the final project you will. So under the submission folders, the final project you will submit. Okay. So that file that we showed earlier for the final project, you will submit that Excel file. In test one, you will not submit an Excel file. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back here. That's kind of, oh, the other thing that you might want to pay attention to is under the course outline. Here we go. So if you want to be familiar with a little bit more of, the proper full description, I didn't cover this because I know you all can read. And we covered the key areas being the mark allocations, et cetera. Those are typically the areas that students ask. But if you want to know specifically what to expect out of the course, I'll let you take a read through the course outline. Okay, the other item is the course plan. So the course plan talks about, what to expect over the term, what, the detailed evaluation process is. If we have 11 quizzes, 22%. There's another little summary. Test one is 18% and it's on FOL. So if you want a little more detail, it's all in here under the course outline. As I post new information, I'll always post an announcement, okay, just so you know. So if I add a video for chapter 12, once I do it, I'll post an announcement to say it's there. Okay, and again, if you have any questions, please email. So that's really in a nutshell what I wanted to go over, just kind of what to expect over the weeks, what we will do together. Yeah, any other questions or points of clarity so far? Can I mention more questions of the lecture? Sure. What I can do is give examples like this might be on the test. Yep, I can do that. For sure. So the question, sorry, that was a private message. It's like, could you mention more questions at the lecture related to the quiz and test? So yeah, so as we cover, chapter 12, I could say this might be a question on the test, things to consider. Just to give you an idea of what to expect. Questions, concerns, comments? What I would encourage you to do this week is, take a look at the schedule. If you have a separate calendar, get the dates put in your calendar for when the quizzes are and the due dates, when the project's open. I don't know how you manage your time. Everybody's a little different. I would get the textbook downloaded, maybe even start to skim chapter 12 between now and the end of the week. So that way next week you're ready to run, do some examples, watch the lesson if you need to, or if you want to, and then jump in next Wednesday for some examples together. Sorry, Elizabeth, were you going to say something? I think you went off mute for a second, but maybe I'm imagining things. Okay. Calvin, Gladys, Ying, Hussein, Miran. Miran, you better tell me, am I saying that right? Or is it just me? No questions? All right. Well, if you don't have questions, you can feel free to drop off. I'll wait here in case somebody does have questions, but you can feel free to drop off, get your calendar sorted, get the textbook down, or maybe you have another project to do already from another course. Otherwise, we'll talk to you through FOL or see you next Wednesday if we don't talk before then. And get ready to run chapter 12 next week. You're very welcome. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you soon.